Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Join hosts Dan Melnick and Qasim Masood as they explore big ideas, limitless possibilities, and engage with visionaries, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who dare to dream big, get inspired, motivated, and find practical tips for personal growth. Think big, dream bigger, and ignite your potential.
Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim, and our guest today is Joe Frankie. So, Joe, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us where you live and what you do for a living.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate it. I live in the Houston area, and for the most part, what I do for a living today, about my fifth or sixth career now, is I help people basically get what they want. If they know where they are and they know where they want to go, I help them build a LinkedIn bridge to get them there. So that's just a combination of career development, career transition, and branding.
Awesome. So that's a very niche business. So how did you get into this business?
Well, it was a journey, and I said what solidified it for me was I was doing executive search, right? And I'd been using LinkedIn for 20 years and kind of been coaching on it for 19. But when partner and I opened an office for a big search firm, they trained us and how they wanted to do it. So when everybody finds out you're an executive recruiter, they're calling and asking, hey, can you help me with my resume? Do you have anything that, you're looking for in my niche? Can you help me with my LinkedIn profile? So the big companies, they don't like you to talk to job seekers. They want you to get out there and hustle and bring in the clients. So I told people, I said, look, I can help you before breakfast. I can help you a little bit at lunch. I can help you, after work, follow the rules. And so anyway, the first batch of people I work with, they all seemed to get interviews. They all landed what they wanted. So then they told their friends and family. So after a while, I was getting phone calls at 5 o'clock in the morning, 11 o'clock at night, saying, hey, you help Billy Bob, can you help me? And what my wife said, look, you need to go back to your day job or turn this into a business. And I never thought about it that way. And I said, why would you think this would be a good business? And she said, Joe, I'm listening to you talk to these people, and you sound like you're developing officers in the Army. Because I had a 34-year career in the Army, 4 years at the Academy, 30 years on active duty. And all you do in the Army as a leader is help your subordinates. You prepare them to go to their next school. You prepare them for their next assignment. You prepare them for their next promotion. That's what leaders do, is take care of, who's under them. And she said that sounded like the same thing. And then all of a sudden, there's a big blinding flash of the obvious that really I have spent the bulk of my life in helping people basically career develop themselves, brand themselves so they can be seen for what they bring to the table. And this was just a natural extension of it. And, I'm sorry that I didn't kind of come to this, unique moment earlier, but it wasn't until my wife brought it up like that, it all kind of came together.
That's amazing. Yeah. So essentially, it was pretty much like, you were getting all these people outside of your day job that were reaching out to you. So how did it happen? She came to you and you're like, okay, next day you're just going to quit your old job and start a business? Or I guess, like, what did that look like for you?
What it looked like was, I kind of transitioned into it, started going and getting some formal schooling on, coaching. I felt I had a pretty good experience, after you do that 30 years in the military. But went ahead and got certified in that, and still did the executive search, but started honing all these other skills. And I still do the executive search, so that keeps me in the game. I just don't chase that anymore.
Got it.
But like in the last 3.5 years, I've been asked to get 3 different CEOs and, did that. So by keeping your hand in the game, the recruiting game, keep up with, what people need to do to be seen.
For sure. So in terms of LinkedIn, I'm curious, like, what are some common mistakes that you see people making on their profiles when you are coaching them?
the LinkedIn profile, I'd say the biggest mistake is, okay, I'm responsible for. Okay, these are a list of my duties. Okay, that might have come off your job description. Okay, but what you need to do is tell story after story that you've solved problems and fixed things. Because I, as a recruiter, if I've got a position spec over here, it's got probably 5 or 6 really key things that, you can almost feel the blood on the paper or the sweat or the teardrops or whatever. And then you go out looking for people that have already solved these kind of problems, right? So if you don't tell stories that you solve problems, how is somebody going to find you? And so I think that's the biggest mistake people make. They just say, okay, I'm responsible for this. And so, okay, you were there. What did you do? What did you bring to the table? Why did they pay you that salary?
For sure. So what are some common tips that you give to people to really stand out on LinkedIn that, your clients might do that other people don't?
I always start out with, okay, what happens when you open up a LinkedIn? Okay, well, what happens is you see your face and you see a background photo, and I'd say that the background photo's got to kind of match up with what you say in your headline. Your headline is that stuff right underneath your profile picture. So is everything congruent? Because the way I look at it is in about 8 or 9 seconds, I'm either going to take a deep dive or move on. And that same is true over the years, they say about resumes. You got a bottom line up front. That resume needs to be written against that particular job. You just don't have a general resume that you just throw at things.
For sure. Yeah, that makes sense. And then, so yeah, I mean, obviously LinkedIn has become, a huge platform. Were there any other platform or any other places that you think people should be when it comes to looking for jobs?
I think if you're looking for the jobs, I look at, when you're out of a job, right? You enter this tube at the top and you get to the bottom of the tube and you come out and then you've got a job, right? Well, the only grease there is in that tube is LinkedIn. So, a lot of my clients over time, they said, well, Joe, I just don't want to do that right now. I said, no problem. So about a year later, they come back and say, I'm not having any luck. And I said, well, we had that discussion about a year ago. And I said, are you ready to listen? And, oh, by the way, this is hard work. I mean, because when you really do a LinkedIn profile right, it's like writing a term paper on yourself. When you think about it, what do you be no do? Well, I mean, you got to lay it out there. And I said the best example, I had a good friend of mine, he was a world-class project manager, right? I know him, I have a relationship with him. And he said, Joe, I'm out of work and I'm not getting anywhere. And I said, well, I would help you, but I can't recommend you. And he goes, what do you mean? He says, you know me inside now. But I said, but the way I work, if I'm going to refer you, I'm going to say, hey, take a look at, Billy Bob's LinkedIn profile and, tell me what you think. And he said, why wouldn't you do that for me? Because I say, you in your about section say, I'm a world-class project manager. I work with Fortune 1000 companies, I've done stuff, and all that kind of stuff. And I said, what you need here in the first 2 sentences of this about section is I'm a world-class project manager. I'm PMP or something else certified. I've handled 17 projects in the last 7 years with project teams ranging from 3 to 17 people, with projects valued at $1.3 million to $2.73 million. And all projects came in on time, under budget. Okay.
Exactly.
2 sentences measure who you are. Because the next thing I'm going to ask you, if I actually going to talk to you, is tell me that story. Who'd you do this with, right?
Right.
And that's all going to be later on in the profile, because whatever you use up front is all going to be backed up, later on. And I said, oh, by the way, you're a project manager, but I'm looking in the project section on your LinkedIn profile and you've never done a project.
Yeah, that's interesting. So,
I never thought about it that way.
Right.
Yeah, what happens with people is you could give advice to somebody else that's world class, but your ability to internalize and take advice on yourself and do it almost requires some outside effort. Okay. And I mean, I get that help from other people.
Right.
And because other people see me in a different light than I see myself.
Right.
And with working with people over the years, you've got to get them out and around their own subconscious so that, they can work, and the subconscious is actually going to help them recall stuff and what have you.
For sure. So I'm curious, yeah, because I like right now, right, especially for LinkedIn, that like they have an option to put open to work, like that button. And it was a bit controversial. Some people say it looks bad. Some people say you should do it. So I guess from your perspective, like what do you think about putting it open to work on your profile, like, if you're looking for work?
Everybody is a unique thing, I'd say, but the bulk of most people, I have the option to have it open to recruiters and not have the green bar there. But any recruiter that's trying to work with somebody that's got the green bar, I mean, their client doesn't want to hear that the recruiter found somebody out of work because they're paying this guy great money to go find them the best and the brightest. And some of the best and the brightest are in between things, but it's how you show up. I mean, you wouldn't go to an interview with a potential employer in shorts and a t-shirt with holes in it, right? I mean, you would go there to present yourself in the setting. You know, if it's a software setting, the t-shirt just doesn't need any holes in it, right? You know, but most people are going to show up kind of like I am here, you know, if they're wanting, you know, a position.
Right, exactly. That makes sense. So obviously nowadays, right, many companies are using high level technology when it comes to business and recruiting, like artificial intelligence. So do you currently use it in your day to day? If not, like where do you think it could actually add value when it comes to recruiting into what you're doing with LinkedIn?
I'd say your primary mission, okay, is you got to come up in the search, right? So that means you're in a content war with whoever your peer competitor is. And your peer competitor is somebody that's just like you that, you know, would fight for the same job that you're at, you know, and you have to ask yourself, have I made myself the absolute best avatar of myself on LinkedIn, right? Because mistakenly people come to me and say, well, Joe, I mean, I can tell them that in the interview. I said, today, you're not going to get to the interview. You're thinking 10 years ago. Today, I mean, you got to be show ready, you know, 24/7, 365. If not, you know, the people that are show ready. I think recruiters and HR departments, you know, we're the laziest batch of people on earth. And I say that just to tell a story. But if you don't wrap yourself up in a beautiful tissue and put yourself in a really pretty box and then to get the best wrapping paper and the best ribbon, in other words, you do all the work for everybody that's got to handle you, then you're going to go to the front of the line. Because the people that still need work, right? You know, 10 years ago, I'd call them on the phone and say, hey, you know, you probably got this experience. Maybe you want to do this and that. But today, I mean, the speed of business is, hey, you know, who's ready? And frequently a client will ask me and say, Joe, did you bring me, you know, the best possible, you know, candidate? And I say, well, I know in some cases I probably didn't. And they said, but why do you say that? I said, well, there was this really good candidate. I was working with him and he wouldn't follow my instructions. So why would I recommend him to you to think he's going to follow your instructions?
Hey y'all, it's Dan Melnick, the CEO of Zing, and I wanted to share a special offer for all of our listeners. Right now, if you need software development services, we'll give you 2 weeks of a free trial. Do you need to update your website? Do you want to build a mobile app? Do you want to update something that you've been working on for a long time? We've worked in a high-level technologies like AI, machine learning, blockchain. So shoot me a text, 817-874-2208. Thank you.
Right. So I guess one more thing I'm curious about is that obviously there's nowadays it's not as common, but I know a couple of years ago there was a big challenge with job hopping and people were constantly hopping from job to job. So in your mind, when you're looking at LinkedIn profiles, like what is kind of a good threshold? Like how long should somebody stay at one job before leaving for a different job? Or what's considered like a red flag in your opinion when you're looking at these different profiles?
So you might, in today's world, post-COVID, I mean, there's 1,000 reasons why somebody has, you know, only a year and a half. And other times, you know, people are having to take breaks to take care of either children or their parents. And even LinkedIn's recognizing that and having some places, you know, break in action, you know. And I always tell people if you stopped and took care of a parent for 6 or 8 months, hey, that was hard work. Describe it. You know, I mean, the logistics of taking care of somebody else and, you know, paying bills and all that stuff. It's kind of a full-time job.
Right, for sure.
And so why not describe it? Other people out here are human too, But if you just have a gap that's unexplained, right, then you have to hope to explain that in an interview. But if that's the thing that kept you from getting the interview, so you take care of all that stuff, I think, a priori, up front.
Right. So you're saying that for some organizations, it could be problematic, but you're saying for others, it might not be, as long as you're explaining it and being upfront about, hey, like I left here, I came here, here's why, right? So as long as you're transparent, some organizations might not have any concern with that.
I had one situation where I was helping a guy, and he worked for one company, right? And the company owned several other companies, but they were different named companies. So what he was a turnaround guy. In other words, they sent him down there because, things were really off key. And, really, this was kind of a family business. I mean, family people were layered in all these different companies. So he send them down there to turn that stuff around. So it looked like he job hopped all these little bitty different companies. And so what we had to do is explain, that was kind of the parent company. And he was sent down in the subordinate companies, to, do what the big CEO wanted done. And the other thing that we had to work on was when he explained that, I had to get him to not go like that. And we worked 2 or 3 hours. His wife even helped me. We worked with a video and everything so that story could just be as clean, looking you straight in the eye. Because what he was worried about, that was going to hold him back. If you show fear, right, people will take it for what it is, And so we had to work through that. And once he had those interviews, after he worked that out, he got what he wanted.
For sure. So obviously you're based in Houston. I'm in Austin. So I'm curious, like, do you typically work with people here in Texas or nationwide or around the globe? Like, where are most of your clients located?
I've helped people in 14 different countries.
Oh, wow.
It's all virtual, so it's just like you and I doing it here. And well, people say, well, how much should be on my profile? And I said, Joe, you got a lot there. I said, but people find me. People that find me from all over the world, that generates a message that might lead to a phone call, and phone calls lead to, hey, I want you to help me. I want you to coach me. Oh, can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? So people say, well, you're just a LinkedIn coach. And I said, when you get into it, you're a personal life coach. You're whatever it takes to, get what they want, right? Because everybody's an individual. In other words, person may just want to, they're unemployed, want to land. A lot of people are not happy. They don't want to jump ship, but they want to be out here, moving someplace else. Some people want to pivot. Some people want to change sectors. Some people want to get their entrepreneurial thing kind of set up and sparked without giving up their day job at this point. So it's whatever the people want that we do, because people say, well, let me get in your class. I said, well, I don't have classes. I work with individuals, because there's no two individuals you get in the room and they have the exact same motive, right?
Right.
So my job is to help them get what they want, not what I think they should have.
Makes sense. So what would you say is the one biggest piece of advice that you wish you knew, I guess, before you started your career and then also before you started this business?
The one piece of advice I wish I had learned to tell stories in the first person a lot sooner.
And that's for both before starting your business and before starting your career.
Everything, because my business is about, people find me because I've solved a problem, right?
Right.
Similar to what they have. One of the things I always say, and it's on my profile, I've coached 725 people to date.
Right.
People say, well, why is that number important? And I say, because if you work with me and you cannot measure your production, you need to save your money and try something else, because
Exactly.
people hire you for you to solve their problems. And the only way they're going to find that out is if you tell story after story after story that you solve problems. And then after you get over 40 years old, what people want to know is that you can solve problems with teams of people. In other words, get divergent, different kinds, multi-ethnic teams, put them together and make something happen.
So do you have like recurring clients that use you for outside of, like, of course you can help somebody with their LinkedIn, find a job, but do you have clients that keep you, recurring for
I'd
other
say about
things?
15% of my clients are recurring clients with at least, they've come back twice. And
Wow.
in some cases, I'm a consultant for them trying to help develop their COO or what have you in their C-suite.
That's awesome. So if we're going to have this conversation again in 1 year from now, where do you see things going for your business?
I see the business continuing. Once COVID hit, my business tripled in about 6 weeks.
Wow.
And one of those rare birds where, COVID for me was a big thing because everybody that never ever planned to be out of work at some point in time was probably out of work.
Right.
People that were very comfortable, they saw their future, they're going to remain with this company. They didn't have resumes prepared. They didn't have world-class LinkedIn profiles. And so most of those were 911 calls like, hey, I just got 2 months severance. I got 3 kids and a house payment.
Right.
I need help.
Right. Yeah, that was a crazy time. So if somebody watching this wanted to reach out to you, do you mind sharing your website or social media? I guess best ways to get in contact.
Yeah, the best way to get in contact with me is on LinkedIn. I'm Joe Frankie III, and my username or, handle on there is Joe Frankie III on LinkedIn. The website is www.jfiiassociates.com. And we've written a book out there, and it's called LinkedIn, the 5-Minute Drill for Executive Networking Success. And it's rated 4.9 out of 5.0 on Amazon and is actually being used in high school business classes, mainly
Amazing.
because I think it's a 1 hour read.
Amazing, amazing. Well, Joe, thank you so much for your time today.
Hey, thanks for having me. And this was very laid back and easy to do, and I appreciate that.
Of course, thank you.